Accident or just need help with dents? All Magic Paint and Body Collision Centers. In business for over 30 years. Their highly trained staff and certified technicians and friendly staff are the best in the business and treat each car as if it was their own. All Magic Paint and Body Collision Centers are family owned and offer state-of-the-art equipment and tools to ensure optimum results. They use the latest technology in computerized color matching and specialize in frame repairs. With their modern laser measuring systems, they're OEM certified, and they have 4 locations to serve you. All Magic Paint and Body Collision Centers offer rental car assistance with free drop-off and pickup services too, and their work has a lifetime guarantee. All Magic Paint and Body Collision Centers are in Norco, Eastvale, Moreno Valley, and in Fontana. Call them at 1-800-61-MAGIC. That's 1-800-61-MAGIC. All Magic Paint and Body Collision Centers. 1-800-61-MAGIC. All Magic Paint and Auto Body says, drive carefully.
Miss your favorite show? Download the podcast at kcaaradio.com.
Lord of the Rims and Tire Shop in San Bernardino says it's hard being away from home during the holidays, but even harder if you're a soldier overseas securing our freedom. Send letters and packages and say prayers for our troops overseas. Remember, they're fighting for our freedom. That's Lord of the Rims and Tire Shop at 115 East Baseline Street in San Bernardino, serving the community with great customer service and low prices. Call 909-888-9775. That's 909-888-9775. Lord of the Rims and Tire Shop is on the air because they care.
The Village Mud wants to remind pet owners of the importance of spaying and neutering. Shelters overflow with unwanted pets. Spaying and neutering helps prevent this and has many health benefits too. That message courtesy of the Village Mud at 66.5 East Foothill Boulevard in Claremont. For self-serve pet wash tubs and high-end food and treats for dogs and cats, featuring natural and raw. Call the Village Mud 909-624-3020 and like them on Facebook.
Apex Bulk Commodities would like to recognize and salute our veterans and local men and women in uniform. Let's remember them with our thoughts, prayers, and especially letters and packages from home. Our support will keep America strong. This important reminder from Apex Bulk Commodities in Adelanto, providing safe and efficient trucking and transfer services. Learn more about them online, including employment opportunities at apexbulk.com.
KCAA.
When I go, I'm gone.
Are you lonely?
No.
Nah, I knew that was going to be
But
the
I
answer.
surround myself with people. I mean, I'm always the one cooking for things. Or I'm always the one that decorates first and come to my house. All the orphans that have no place.
I'm going to have no place to go, so
Okay,
I can
come on over.
And life is so amazing if we can see it.
Jump off that exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living with Dr. Marissa.
Promise you joy in the mystery.
Dr. Marissa, also known as the Asian Oprah. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate to live, laugh, love, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pay.
And welcome, you're tuned into Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on NBC News, CNBC News, and NBC Sports radio station KCAA, the station that leaves no listener behind, home to the Asian Oprah, AM 1050, FM 106.5, and streaming everywhere. iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, Audible, Amazon Music, T-Live, Rumble, Podchaser, Spreaker, Streaker, you name it, I'm there. And I am your hashtag positively opinionated host. Frank, could you check that gerbil sound again? So every once in a while. Do you have earbuds, James? If you do, I'll try on my end again.
It's silent.
Yeah,
here.
do you hear the gerbil?
I don't.
Oh, okay. Do you hear the gerbil, Troy, in the thing? Every once in a while, I don't know. It doesn't always happen, but I don't know if Frank hears it. That's the most important thing. Is as long as my listeners are not listening to the gerbil, I can deal with it. But I am so delighted to have you here on this show. Consecutively 604, 1,071 shows. This is a show about hope and happiness. So there's no gossip, no scandal, no K words, no Kanye talk at all, formerly or now, because I want you to be happy 88% of the time. So focus on your own reality show with guests and topics to that end and special series. We are Thursday because I have my new fabulous, good-looking, wink, wink, co-host for Straight Talk. He is James Hawthorne, and let me just read you a bit about him. He is. The gerbil seems like it's gone. That's awesome. He's an actor, host, film festival co-founder. That's how I first met him, and personal trainer. In other words, a true Angelino. He dates regularly and relationships occasionally. Yes, he verbed that word. His East Coast roots are now intertwined with 13 years of living in LA for a unique perspective on all things dating and relationships, which is why he is my new co-host here. And let's welcome him back to the studio. He survived his first week.
Thank you, Dr. Marissa.
How are you feeling?
Doing pretty good. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm going to try to fix the gerbil, but you can start off the gratitude sandwich, which is something that I started about a year ago, so that we would start in the most positive way. What are 8 things that we are grateful for? And we'll take turns. We'll go to the Cashew Gallery, where Troy Pacelli is streaming in from Chicago. He's basically part of the crew now because he's such a wonderful, consistent supporter that comes in pretty much every day. I didn't see you early this morning, and I was like, oh no, is he going to break his consecutive being here in the Cashew Gallery? Now, let's see if that doesn't fix the all right. Here we go. I am grateful. No, chipmunk's still there. Okay. I am grateful for my my ability to be positive 88% of the time. That's more like an appreciation. What are you grateful for, James?
I'm grateful for my dog. I know that sounds silly, but I had just a wonderful, wonderful time with him at the park yesterday, and then it started to pour rain while being sunny out, and it was so funny. A minute before that, the rain came, all the dogs got the zoomies collectively, and all the owners were standing around going, "What is going on with our dogs?" And then the sky opened up, and so I'm grateful for my dog and his reminder to stay in touch with our intuitive sense, because that's what I chalk it up to. Him knowing that rain was coming.
There you go. I love dogs. Troy. He is grateful the weekend is nearly upon us. I am grateful that I get to look at the ocean of abundance every single morning. Let's see if I can share that with you. This is outside my window.
Beautiful.
And thank you. You can see the Wyland building out there. I don't know why. Is this my camera? Okay, you're about to see my dress. There we go. Is that a little better? I'm grateful that I live right across from the, do you see the Queen Mary?
Ooh.
And yeah, I don't know if you can, maybe that thing is in the way. There it is. Do you see it?
I see it. I see those 3 funnels.
Yeah, that is much better. There, the Wyland building is better now. I'm grateful for movable cameras. Hit me with another gratitude.
Let's see. Oh, I do think you. Oh, we're getting feedback. Okay, so let me lower my volume.
Yeah, I
really
hadn't
quickly.
raised the volume, so maybe that's my fault. But is that
Despite
any better?
the technical difficulties, I'm grateful for technology to be able to do this show, sitting right here in my living room as you look at the Queen Mary. I think that's pretty cool.
Absolutely. I'm grateful that I have Troy, who is a good earpiece for the show. so we can make sure that it sounds okay. Let's move to the bottom of the button, which is, what do you like about yourself? And the reason why I do this is we're practicing for you. Before you go to bed, the tendency is, I'm guilty of this too, to do MS, which is meaningless scrolling, usually negative news, usually somebody pissed at somebody, the temptation to unfriend people, or, collecting facts about people who really don't matter in your life. I mean, I'm really guilty of that, especially if I watch a really good movie and then I want to know about the actors and et cetera, et cetera. So that is fine, except if it gets you riled up, you're going to have a hard time sleeping. So instead of doing that, I want you to plug this in another room and then end the day with 8 things that you like about yourself. That way, it's a counter replacement for beating up on yourself or thinking about all the things you didn't do or who done you wrong. So we're practicing now. What do you like about yourself? That's my BS belief system that self-care is the foundation of good mental health. You can take responsibility for that, and there's no side effects, except maybe a good night's sleep. So I appreciate my ability to practice what I teach most of the time.
I love that. We can't be perfect, right? So I like that I'm easily amused, because I think that one of the best ways to get through life is laughter, and it doesn't take much to make me laugh. So
Awesome.
I enjoy that. I find amusement in a lot of things that others might ignore.
Beautiful. Troy appreciates his forgiving nature. PJ was just building me up on that yesterday. Oh, that's nice. And we'll see if PJ shows up. He's streaming in from Portugal, and he's the reason why Troy and I met. Speaking of Troy, I will be on Troy's show on Friday night. Here's a little commercial. His YouTube TV channel is Last Call with Troy Pacelli. So if you want a little more of me, beyond the 5 days in the morning, glutton for positive punishment, join us tomorrow night at 7 p.m. my time, Pacific time, and then you can adjust that the other ways. I appreciate that I am adventurous. My middle name is No Fear, and sometimes I step in it, but most of the time I step into a whole lot of fun. James, one more.
I love that. Leap and the net will appear, but in order to do that, you got to have the courage to leap. So I would say that. I would say a sense of courage. I'm always willing to try new things and take big risks, and they don't always work out, but the cliche is that the journey is the thing, but things become cliches because they're true. And so I'm grateful for a lot of the journeys that have come my way by the virtue of courage to take some big chances and risk falling on my face. But that leap usually, that net usually appears. So I'm grateful for that.
The Flicks for Change Film Festival that I'm at, James, and I just want to give you some kudos. He doesn't do just a film festival, but it is film festival with a purpose, and he highlighted many indie short films that looked at, let's see if I can remember some of them that I was specifically very impressed with. Short films about the child slave labor that goes into making those rugs that you think are so wonderful, and just how they need the little fingers, but can you imagine a 4, 5, 6-year-old? That's what they do for their lives, and it was just heartbreaking. But kudos to you, and that's one of the reasons why he's my co-host. Is he not only does, I was shocked actually, because I didn't know that he was an actor. I thought he was a film producer, film festival, all of that, which he is. But just some kudos to you, James, for that effort. And I know that it made a difference for the time that it was on. And you never know, what's going to come out of that.
That's certainly true. That was always a goal, to try to build a community using the thing that I love, art and storytelling, to try to make the world a little bit of a better place. And starting as an actor, sometimes you get scripts where you're like, do I really even care if this story gets made? But then there's other people that are putting their heart and soul into films that really can change the world by educating people, compelling them to action. And I said, well, God, what if we get these incredible storytellers together with the nonprofit organizations that are tackling the issues and an audience that is going to be moved because of the quality of these films? Get them all in one place and see if we can find that secret sauce. And it was a really fun chapter, in my life, something that I'll always, look back on fondly.
Great. And that was a compliment that you're supposed to say thank you to.
Thank you, Dr. Marissa. I really appreciate that. I do. Yeah, I mean,
busted him. He's just like me. Compliments do not necessarily, land, and I get that. You're like me, a recovering overachiever. So let's see. I think that's it for breakfast with Dr. Marissa and
James Hawthorne.
This is the Take My Advice, I'm Not Using a Gift Balance with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, the station that leaves no listener behind. And it is Thursday. We are running right into the weekend with Straight Talk. This particular series I love because I'm allowed to be a little bit naughty. So that was the qualification. I had to have a cute co-host. So there you go. It's funny because I've had several people now reach out and say, did you find a co-host? Because I would be interested. And it's like, too late. Got that, just you're a day late, dollar short. But anyways, I am building a backup because I know that when you do have a big audition, I'm not going to make you do the show. So, but it is a lot of fun. And I'm glad that we're here. And I'm going to let you introduce the topic after we appreciate y'all joining us for breakfast. And thank you for the finger. Somebody gave us a finger, not that one, but this one. If you are driving right now, please do not join us in the chat. But if you're not driving and you're at any kind of smart device, please go to YouTube channel, my YouTube TV channel, free subscribe, because that way you can watch and listen. And of course, today is a good series to watch. What is the topic for today, James?
Yes, the question is hanging out, dating, or in a relationship. Does the way that we describe our current status with a significant other, does the verbiage we use affect us, the other person, and those around us? And what are some of the pitfalls that we can avoid and watch out for as we navigate that journey and the terms that we use around it?
All right. So, I don't know if you noticed the music I used for the promo this morning. Oops, I did it again. And that is because when we were sussing out this topic, James has actual experience on getting in trouble. So the terminology ended up in termination for him in that particular relationship, as I love to play with words. But it is, I'm going to put the moose on the table. You meet someone, your eyes meet across the room, you feel some kind of an attraction. If this happening in the bar, it's with or without some enhancers, Coyote Ugly enhancers, or beer, beer goggles. So let's just say, you're pretty accurate, you have a great time, however that goes, you end up contacting each other, texting, calling, you go on another date, with or without alcohol, you have a good time, and let's say you're doing this, you start to spend more time together, like 2 times a week maybe, and then you start hanging out, which I'm told by my daughters is the official way to describe hooking up, but hooking up with some level of glue. So, hooking up is like maybe a one-night stand, and or some, not even friends, but benefits. Let's just say benefits. And then hanging out is like the next it's actually beyond hooking up because you're hanging out. There's some level of consistency. See if I've got these terms right. And then after hanging out is you go, I don't know if exclusive, that was in my day, that was committed, exclusive. Nowadays, my daughter actually said, I asked him to be my boyfriend, and I'm like, okay, that means that, I guess that's how you're still calling that boyfriend, girlfriend. And then exclusive is somewhere in there. And then after that is committed relationship. And then after committed relationship, you're committed to an institution. No, I'm just kidding. And then after committed relationship, you go to marriage or living together or moving in, and then marriage or either or both. So is that about the timeline of terminology? Did I get that about right?
I think that's true. And the big word there is this idea of exclusivity and when that applies. And I think that can be very touchy for couples, even before they're couples, because navigating that process and managing, there's two big E's here: expectations and exclusivity. And I think navigating those as you move from that initial hookup to hanging out, whatever that means, right? We can dive into that, to dating, to then in a relationship. How you navigate expectations and exclusivity, I think, are the big pitfalls that we fall into. And I've certainly fallen victim to that, whether it's beyond the person saying the words of, oh, we're this, and putting the label on it, or whether you're the person that is receiving the news that, oh, okay, so we're just hanging out. Nice to know that that's all I mean to you, right? So there's some challenges with how we use those words and them circling back around to us through mutual friends or whatever it may be. And it can be a sticky process to make it through those levels. If you think of dating like a video game, to make it all the way to relationship with somebody that you really like, sometimes
How
the verbiage
sticky
can get you
is
in trouble.
that, James? Did you hear that? I said, how sticky is that? Sorry, couldn't resist. Oh.
Quite sticky.
Cashew Gallery is active. James has got the hang of the prompt. You guys are becoming a real team. Oh, that's sweet.
Thank you.
Let's see. That's right. Let your radio listeners know that if they're able to tune in the show on YouTube so they can see your beautiful face and James's awesome smile. Troy Pelly is definitely such a great complimenter you are. And I'll take it. So, all right. So that's the topic. Feel free to share. Around, three-quarters of the show, we'll talk about maybe some solution. I don't know if there's necessarily any solution to this topic. I do know that I'm going to put the moose on the table around how this topic area can really lead to some pain points that may or may not be blocking your ability to have a successful relationship or a loving relationship that you're not going to sabotage because of your past. So that's what's triggered in me, because I just remembered one of my early hanging out episodes when I was in college, and I was a very late bloomer. I think I was a virgin until college. I live out loud here on the show. For those of you who don't even know what virginity is these days, I was teasing a Gen X, Y, or Z, I can't remember, about the word premarital sex, and they looked at me like, I don't think I've ever heard that term before. Because it does seem, the stereotype is that these days is like a sexual revolution times two. We had one in the 60s, and now we're having several more with this new generation. And I'm faced with that with my daughters. But I give them, don't ask, don't tell. I just don't want to know. But we've already had that discussion several times, by the way, because I didn't have that discussion when I was a kid. So the joke is, in our house, I went to the extreme of talking about the birds and the bees and all that, to the point where my kids would say, "Mom, is there one dinner that we can have where we do not have to use the V word? And I'm not going to say that out loud because I did get in trouble for saying that. But you can imagine. But sorry, I digress. My first time in college was with someone who said, I thought we were going to get married because I grew up really religious, and if I did it, that meant we were going to get married. So that was where my head was. And then I found out he was waiting for a girl to ask her out in the math class when I was outside with his best friend. And so I asked him, I said, I thought we were, in a relationship. And he said, haven't you ever heard of casual sex? Haven't you ever heard of casual sex? And I said, no. And he said, welcome to college. So that was my first time. So you can imagine how much detritus that attracted into my BS belief systems about exclusivity, about sex, about relationships. So I'll be the first to admit that I did not have a good start. There's, in some ways, I think I'm still dealing with the after effects of that, so that my, sex and romance and relationships are not a smooth, oiled machine, except maybe in the one that buzzes. But I'm still working on that. And maybe that is why relationships are a loaded topic for me, and maybe why it's just easier to not have one.
Unlike your automobile, there is no user's manual. There's no instructions on how to navigate this thing that we call love. And nowadays it's so interesting, especially living in Los Angeles. You hear about open relationships and thruples. So talk about throwing expectations out the window.
What was that? Open relationships
and thruples.
What is that?
That's where three people are like dating together, and I don't even know how. I mean, dealing with one significant other is a lot. I don't know how three people navigate the needs of each other. Yeah. So it's basically like, for example, taking a threesome, if you will, under the sheets and putting it into a 24/7 arrangement. And I've met folks that are involved in thruples. Like, I've been at parties and I'm like, oh, so you two are dating. They're like, no. We three are dating. And I'm like, say what? And that's a thing now too.
Good Lord. A throuple is a relationship between three people who have all unanimously agreed to be in a romantic, loving relationship together with the consent of all people involved. You may also hear a throuple referred to as three-way relationship triad or closed triad. Okay, I am definitely being thrown for a loop here. Healthline has this, okay? Is it the same thing as an open relationship occurs between two people who have mutually agreed to have open sex, but not romance or love with the other people? If two folks in an open or closed relationship have sex together with a third person, this is a threesome, not a throuple. You're going to bang my head in a second.
Sometimes a threesome can lead to a throuple, I guess, if the sexual encounter is really good. I don't know. But, boy, talk about a lot of emotional work and baggage to carry around, having to get along with two people in that intimate way. That's
I agree with you. It's tricky enough with two. So I can't even imagine dealing with all of the emotions and all of the human dynamics that go along with three people. I don't know. Why is this happening, James? Is it because people are bored with just, the traditional? Is it an extreme reaction to being told that this is the only way to have relationships? Is it because of during the pandemic, like, we got things cross-wired, or is this a new way of expressing creativity? Tell me, please.
It's a great question, and all I have right are theories on it, but I think a lot of it has to do with the advent of technology. I think it's less about a singular event such as the pandemic, and more about the progress of society driven by, and progress is debatable, of society driven by technology. So kids can go online, right, and so easily find uh, pornography and see all these crazy things, and it can become, rather than this wild thing, it becomes, there's a sense of normalcy around it that develops. And then I think when you ask, are people becoming bored? I think it's something about when you overstimulate yourself with this easy access to these crazy things that you can find on a Google search. I think people start to think, well, that could be me, or why aren't I being more adventurous? And I think people are exploring the limits of what relationships can be because of that. I think because the access to these non-traditional things, when it comes to relationships, is so easy. I think that it compels people to find that greater high, that greater buzz, if you will. And in that way, I think what once was enough is now boring, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Traditional values are like, why would I just do that when I could do this, do the other, have that? You talked about waiting to college for to lose your virginity, and I think now a
That
lot of
wasn't a
times,
choice. That was not a choice necessarily, in that I grew up extremely self-conscious and not attractive. So I was I actually just started writing another book for teenagers, and it's called "You're Not Meant to Be in the Dark," because I think that this is an epidemic right now where COVID didn't help with the isolation, but that the voices in the head that tell you that you're not enough, you're not attractive enough, they're smarter than you, is amplified now, younger and younger, and with all the drugs that are out there, and with all the, like you say, the access to things that are not good for you, the cutting, all of the things that are, highlighting a situation where we are. Our mental health is at risk, younger and younger. I've been, sort of led to believe this is my next book, to focus on that voice, because that's my happiness coaching expertise, is dealing with that critic in the head. But I was I was overweight. I had really bad acne and very thick glasses. I had a -9, and I was called a chunk, which is a fat. And then I'm going to use this horrible expression, but just so you know, that's the level I was at in high school. Early high school, I was called a fat chink, which is a chunk. And so that did not preclude, I did not look like this. I was not modeling at the time. But I carried that level of body dysmorphia, and so even when I did start modeling late in high school, I still didn't see myself as attractive enough to have sex. And any guy that would want to have sex was, delusional kind of thing. It's not that bad now, but it's still, I still have that stuff in the back of my head. So just so you know, I didn't choose that necessarily. But go ahead.
right? Yeah, I think I think that's why you start your show the way that you do. Everybody has to focus on those things that they. It's so easy for the things that you don't like to jump out, but it's so important to carve out the time to find the things that you do love, because I think a lot of times we can project the things that we don't like about ourselves onto our partners and bring that stress into the relationship unfairly sometimes. And I think that there is some truth to that notion that you have to love yourself before you can be fully available and open to love somebody else, because there's such a tremendous amount of vulnerability in it. And to bring it back to the topic, I think that vulnerability is why that that verbiage around hanging out, dating, and having that discussion with the person. If you really like somebody, I think there's a tremendous amount of fear around this idea of rejection, of saying, well, we're having a good time. We have this thing about hanging out, and I like it, but I want the next thing. I want dating. And we're afraid of maybe putting that pressure on the person. But if it's what you emotionally want and need, I think having that conversation is important. So that's the other E, right? Expectations. And I think respecting yourself enough to have the courage to share those with an individual is really important. And if it stops at just hanging out, I mean, the worst thing someone can say to you is no. And then you have the power to decide, well, okay, I want a relationship with them. They don't. Do I want to keep hanging out with them, or do I want to move on and free myself so that I have the space and the availability to find someone where it's more compatible and a better fit? But I think a lot of times people don't have that conversation because they're afraid of rejection, and there's a stigma around putting pressure on the person to take that next step, especially in this day and age for some reason. And I still try to wrap my head around why that is.
I definitely have come to the conclusion, and we're in the second half, so we can talk about solution. That for me, it's more important that you are with someone who has a similar outlook as you do than it is to say that there is one way to do a relationship, or there's one way to define what is a relationship or not. And I think people get hung up because they want to, they have this BS belief system that there's one person, right? And if there's only one soulmate or twin flame or whatever you want to call it, then it gets really tricky, because if you think that that's your person and they don't think you're their person, all of a sudden you take it personally. Like, what have I done? Why am I not good enough for them? Why aren't they, and all I want is for them to see me the way that I see them. And it's like barking up the wrong tree, literally, or peeing on the wrong tree, literally, as I'm getting a dog vision, where it's like, no, he's just not that into you, ergo that really good book, and not take it personally, that there's so many people that you could have a very successful, healthy, wonderful, affirming relationship with in the world. You can't tell me that there's one person in, what is it now, 7.3, how many billion people do we have now? I don't even remember anymore, but there's only one person? Like, come on, give me a break. So if I bring it back to the topic and what we were talking about, why are we going into throuple and all of this? I do think that when you said traditional values of, one person till death do us part, I think that has done a disservice and also fuels this rebellion against that. So I would say that there is not just one person, and by saying till death do us part, will ignite someone's rebellion to say, F you, no, I'm going to go and, try to shock and awe you now with something that is completely against what you want me to do.
Speaking to that, we were talking about when people have sex in a relationship. You were talking about, well, if I'm having sex with that person, that means that we're probably going to get married. You mentioned that thought process that you had in college. And I think now more than ever, there's a life is short, eat dessert first kind of mentality. And I don't know whether it's right or wrong, but there certainly seems to be this, you can make the case for it by saying, well, sexual compatibility is important in a romantic relationship. So why not do that right off the bat and make sure that that's there? And if that's there, then we work on the other stuff. But sometimes, as we talked about, if relationships are loaded, so is that component of it known as sex. Sex can be very loaded, especially for people with their past trauma and things like that. So, the other E beyond expectations is exclusivity. And how do you bring that discussion into that migration from hanging out to dating to relationships. Because talk about putting pressure on another person in a time when people, I think feel, like you said, they give the fu, if you will, to traditional values. How do you express a need that you want to know that you're the only one, and that they're having sex with, and vice versa? How does that conversation go? How do you approach it, and why do we get so hung up about it?
Well, I think you said the R word earlier. People's fear of rejection is so strong. I do happiness coaching with men and relationship coaching with men who will tell me that they were destroyed, their hearts were broken from their first relationship, and they are afraid in every subsequent relationship. And I asked them, how long ago was this? 40 years ago. Really? 40? You've allowed something that happened to you when you were 18 affect you for 40 years, so that you are afraid to get into a relationship with a woman that is loving to you, but because you're afraid they're going to break your heart again. My first always is, no one can break your heart. No one has the power to break your heart. You have the ability to feel like your heart is broken, but no one breaks your heart. We own our heart, right? It is not something that you can fully give for someone to irreparably, say that word 3 times, do damage to for good. And that, I think that is part of the fear of wanting to say that. But your E word, expectations, and your other is it an E word or whatever that
Exclusivity.
Exclusivity, yes, is so important to separate out the personal aspect of that. If you're feeling that you want this person to not sleep around, for whatever reason, exclusivity on an emotional basis or physical basis, for fear of, disease, which is a reality, and putting that out there. If they feel pressured, like you say, if that person feels like, I'm not ready for that, it's okay. They're not ready for that. You want to do this, right? They don't want to do this. So then you decide, okay, I can stop doing that and go elsewhere, or I can back off and I'll date other people too, not because I feel like it, but, so that I keep my own expectations in check. But it's not a personal rejection of you. They're just not where you are. If you can say, they're just not where I am, that takes the zing out of the rejection. It's not personal. They're just not where you are. And then you make the decision, how much more time am I going to invest in this relationship? And in the meantime, can I enjoy the relationship? I tell my kids all the time, just have fun. And it's like, my girlfriend said, you tell that to your kids? And it's like, yes, I tell that to my kids, because they're in their early 20s, right? They're still exploring who they are, what they think a good relationship is. So have fun with it. If you can't have fun with it, if you're overanalyzing your relationship, you're losing the fun that is intrinsically part of the relationship. And that, my friends, is such a waste of time.
I think that's tremendous advice. It reminds me of that adage or that description where we're dragging all of our baggage from the past into the present, and then in the present, all we're doing is worrying about tomorrow. So what is happening today? If we're bringing all this with us today, and all we're thinking about today is about the next step, we're not enjoying a darn thing. And
yes.
That advice to enjoy it and be present is great. And if there is uncertainty about what's happening tomorrow or where the relationship is heading, you can certainly have that conversation in, I think, a non-demanding way. You can just be like, hey, I just want some clarity. Tell me where your head's at. And as opposed to going into it with this idea that I want them to accept that I want to go from hanging out to dating, or I want to go from dating to a relationship where we're working on building a future together. Instead of thinking I want them to want the same thing I want, how do I discuss that with them, I think it's better to just check in and be like, hey, I'd like some clarity. Where are you at? And then I think what you say next becomes apparent in the moment, and trusting your ability to adapt in the present to what the other person's giving you. I think we don't give ourselves enough credit to receive information, take a deep breath, and adapt to what we're hearing.
Yeah, absolutely. This, you'll love this. Living in the worried prattle of our heads is like sitting in front of the Grand Canyon with a paper bag over our heads. I love that saying. I'm sorry if I'm not giving you credit. I haven't used it in a while. I think it's a Native American saying, which would be so amazing because it is Native American Heritage Month. I do believe that's where I got it from, but I'm not going to quote myself or have that error. But okay, Troy Pacelli. I think the reason people think that there's only one soulmate for them is because generally, when you find them, you stop looking. Fair point. Fair point. However, I do believe that our upbringing in the Book of Cinderella or Snow White or society that says we are, we just, there's one Prince Charming, there's one mate, there's one person, and you live happily ever after, does lead us to that only one. And I think that the only one BS belief system is more harmful than good when it comes to relationships. Now, people will say, "Oh, Dr. Marissa, you're promoting divorce." No, I am not promoting divorce. I am happily divorced, but I do believe that there has to be a balance from the old BS belief system that till death do us part, no matter what, you stay for the kids. I don't believe that BS has ever been healthy. And yes, I do believe there are a lot of people who aren't working on their relationships at all and move too quickly out of the relationship. So balance that out. But it might be just a normal, that pendulum. To get it to go in the balance, you got to overswing. So that's why, there are unfair sexual harassment cases. There are unfair Me Too or not true. But for the most part, they are. But it is that necessary swing to the other end so that we can come and rest in the balance.
I think on either end of the extremes, you can set yourself up for heartache. If you're too tied to that traditional value, that is a recipe for guaranteeing yourself great pain when you lose someone that you love later on. And then also, if you overly complicate your situation, maybe there are people that are happily thrupled, but I would never want to get into something like that personally. But if you're looking, you have to ask yourself, am I just chasing the next high with the way that I'm engaging in the hanging out, dating, relationship world? That can set you up for a heartache too, because there's only so much stimulus our nervous system can take. So I think on either end of that, I think it's important to check in with yourself, with your BS systems, your belief systems, and also to check in with, if you want something, why do you want it? Do you want it because you've absorbed so much junk food, sugar on the internet, so to speak, watching crazy stuff that you're like, well, I mean, a throuple doesn't seem that crazy? Or is it because you genuinely have that much love to give? I mean, if that's how you feel, and it could work. It's just not something that I personally want to jump into. But
I hate to tell you this, there's an app now for throuples.
Really?
Find a throuple.
Did you just find this during our show right now? Oh no.
I'm not highlighting it. Don't worry, I'm not highlighting it. But it's your fault. You brought it up.
I did bring it up. You just showed the 4-year-old where the candy store is.
Oh my Lord
You want your sugar rush? Go
yeah,
find that.
Yeah, it is. I don't know. Anyways, I'm not judging. Whatever floats your boat, but do you need a boat that big? Or be careful where you put your boat? Because anyways, if you've just tuned in, you're wondering what the fork is going on in studio today. We're having a very interesting conversation that I did not plan to have about throupling or other ways in which we are taking relationships to a whole nother level. And some of it to me is below ground or below sea level. But hey, whatever floats your boat. We're talking about signs of the boats. No, we're not. We could do that another week. But we are talking about terminology and relationships. That's where we started. And this is Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa. The morning show here on NBC News Radio, KCAA, AM 1050, FM 106.5, streaming everywhere, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, and my YouTube TV channel where you can not only listen, but watch as well and interact in the chat. So if you are not driving, please do that. Let's see. I think we have oh no, that's mine. We covered that already. I just didn't want to ignore my chat here and what Troy was saying. So I think we literally beat that one, that topic with a wet noodle and more. I do want to. Oh shoot! I lost that thought. I was going to give another example, but I lost it. Go ahead, James.
I have a final thought, actually.
Yeah.
About the topic.
We're not final thought. We still have 7 minutes, so we're good.
Well,
yeah.
I have another thought.
Yes.
You know, a recurring theme throughout today, we've been discussing this idea of not necessarily blaming yourself or taking it personal when things don't work out. And I think we can save ourselves a lot of suffering when we chalk it up to incompatibility. And I think that if we go into difficult relationship conversations with that understanding that sometimes it's just not the right time or the right person at the right time, navigating those two big E's of expectations and exclusivity as you go from hanging out to dating to relationships becomes a lot easier. And then those discussions around them becomes easier if we can just say, hey, it's not me, it's not you, it's just what's happening in between isn't working. The chemistry isn't there, there's just incompatibility. And then, you know, that allows you to absolve yourself of this blame and making it personal, and also allows you to, I think, treat the other person with grace. You know, if it turns out that you're not on the same page with what you want from one another.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just curious on where that expression came from. This is where my mind goes. Whatever floats your boat.
Right.
So they're saying they actually don't know on this particular one. So I'll keep looking. But yeah, I love that EE thing you're doing, though. That's kind of cool because you know how much I love doing the wordplay.
I love the Grand Canyon with a brown paper bag over your head. For anybody listening who's never been to the Grand Canyon, I have to promote it. I did a cross-country road trip during the pandemic, helping a friend get from LA back to their family in New Jersey, and she's like one of my best girlfriends, so we went and did that together. She actually helped me produce the film festival for 5 years, so we became very close through doing that. And we stopped at the Grand Canyon, and that cliche of, oh, it's breathtaking. Nothing has taken my breath like actually standing on that Southern Rim Trail and looking out across it. It's so breathtaking. You're like, where's the green screen? You feel like you're looking at a fake backdrop that's been painted, and you're like, no, that's nature. And that's what's absolutely shocking about it. So if you need to be humbled and you want some real beauty, carve out the time to see what nature carved into the earth and go check out the Grand Canyon. That's my plug for that, by the way.
There you go. We'll have to get them to be a sponsor of the show.
Right.
So I can't read all of this out loud, but I learned something else new. It says the term that whatever floats your boat. The term used to be, I'm glad that makes you happy, even though I don't get it myself. Okay, it comes from the term man in the boat, referring to a woman's body part and female genitalia. So if your boat is floating, you are quite happy. Did you know that?
I did not. That is enlightening.
We're just learning all kinds of things here today. You just never know what's going to happen here on the show. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to use that term. What floats your boat?
Now that you know, you can't unknow.
Without laughing. I do want to go PG for a second though. Have you ever been to Sedona?
I haven't, and it's on my list. I hear it's equally stunning.
So I would actually say that my experience with the Grand Canyon, which was amazing, and I actually led a Tai Chi class in front of the Grand Canyon, which was amazing. But it was actually superseded or even topped by Sedona and the Red Rocks. So you definitely need to put that on your bathtub list, not your bucket list, because those are too small. So I'm going to move that to the top of your list. Because when you go there, you will be like, okay, I know what Dr. Marissa was talking about. The Red Rocks of Sedona are just so amazing. It's incredible. Oh, geez, we're 2 minutes. So we had our final words just now. And I do want to thank you for joining us today on Straight Talk with Dr. Marissa and
James Hawthorne. Thank you, everybody.
My new co-host, and we've had a lot of fun talking about the topic today. Hopefully you have learned more than just throuple and what floats your boat, but if that's all you took away, go figure. We're so delighted to have you tune in every Thursday at 9, right after the NBC News here on KCAA, AM 1050, FM 106.5, the station that leaves no listener behind. Tune in tomorrow when it's Straight Talk. It is Tempting Conversations with Dr. Marissa and the daughter of the founder of the Temptations, Alon Carter, and we'll be tempted to talk about who knows. Just so delighted that you're here. Thank you for tuning in. James, if you would join me, it's all about balance. Peace in, peace out. World peace through inner peace. Now go and have the best day ever. We'll see you tomorrow. This is Dr. Marissa reporting live from her living room with my brand new wonderful co-host.
What are you going to do to me?
KCAA Loma Linda.